everyone, I'm Jenna.
And I'm Mark. Thank you all for joining us for another episode of Cincinnati Zoo Tales. We're really excited for today's show. We're being joined by David Jenike, the original David around here, we just learned. Dave Jenike, who's the zoo COO, but he's also a huge monarch butterfly enthusiast.
I love monarch butterflies, and I think you're going to teach me a lot today, so I'm excited.
They are such amazing animals, and I know we'll get into it, but holy cow. Of animals here in North America, I somehow they become my favorite.
Oh, they're your number one favorite?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that, because you're a big birder too, right?
I am, and I think starting to watch birds is what led me to monarchs.
Okay.
In fact, I spent a fall migration up at Cape May, New Jersey. And it's renowned for the birds of prey that fly through down the East Coast. And you can get at this little point and just watch the birds all day long. But I happened to be there one day when a monarch flight came through. And it just blew me away that here you are sitting on the beach and there's just a river of monarchs flying over your head. Just one after another.
So you weren't even expecting it?
No. I can remember sitting on this boardwalk for probably 2 or 3 hours trying to get a photograph, which I couldn't do, of these monarchs flying, beginning their journey south.
Wow.
Absolutely amazing. And then we worked with a nice woman, Louise Zamitis, who works with some of the Monarch Watch programs, and she was catching and netting and then tagging monarchs there in Cape May, and so we got to go help her and go,
that always blows my mind.
monarchs.
I just don't understand how it doesn't harm them, or I'd be so nervous that I would. But I've seen a tagged monarch in my yard, and it was the most exciting thing ever.
And then they find them. The recapture rate is very low.
Okay.
But it is, they do find them having traveled great distances, which is amazing. So I've always been interested in them, but it was something that just literally that day I can remember thinking, this is the most incredible. I was laying on my back just looking up at a blue sky and seeing these bright orange monarchs just flying by for hours.
Oh my gosh.
So enjoyable.
That's amazing.
Bucket list for sure.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
so many things that I want to do. And so we want to, you're just an enthusiast about monarchs, but that's not your job, and we want to hear about monarchs. But tell us a little bit what it's like to be the COO and what you did to get there. And
yeah, so I earned my stripes in education.
I feel like that's a good starting place for many of us here at the zoo.
At the end of the day, we're about inspiring our visitors, inspiring our listeners with wildlife. And we have that great fortune to work with some of the most amazing animals on our planet, and to get to see them and develop relationships with them every day is breathtaking and a responsibility all in of itself. But then to be able to share that interest and that energy and that enthusiasm with visitors really makes all the difference. And in fact, if I went back and said, as a kid, what did I grow up thinking I would be? It probably wasn't going to be a zoo COO. It was going to be one of those national park rangers, wearing the big Smokey the Bear hat, sitting by the campfire telling stories about bears. Because as a kid, both my parents were teachers, and every summer for 2 to 3 weeks a summer, we'd pull a coachman trailer, and I have 2 brothers and a sister, and we'd just travel around the United States visiting national parks.
Incredible.
And I think through that and I was never a museum guy, so I always liked coming to the zoo or the nature center or going on those trips.
Seeing living things,
right?
Yeah,
to get outside, to hike, to just explore. So I think I developed that passion at a young age. And actually, in grad school, I just knew I was interested in wildlife and got engaged, went to Miami University, did my undergrad and then a master's degree at Miami. And somewhere in there, I met some amazing people. In fact, the best advice I can give to anybody starting their career, certainly do what you need to do in the classroom, but take the time to develop some relationships.
Yes,
with
we've talked about
people.
that briefly on here. It's so important.
Just, I mean, there are people doing amazing things in the world, and when you hear their story, go talk to them.
Yes.
And learn more. And sometimes some of those stories lead to opportunities, and some of those relationships can grow into opportunities. So I heard two speakers from the zoo in my graduate program.
Are they still around? Would we know them?
I don't know. One of them was from the cat show. A woman named Kathy Thompson.
Okay.
Who was an IES grad, so the Institute of Environmental Science is the master's program I went to, and she came up with a serval and did a program for us, talked to us about the role of zoos and conservation, and I went and talked to her afterwards, and just fell in love with what they were doing down here, and I came down and at that point started teaching the overnight program, Nocturnal Adventures.
Oh, awesome.
Well, I was still in grad school, so it was a way to pay for, I'm not sure I paid for a lot of grad school. I probably paid for extra beer. And
That was my first job, too. I don't know how
So-
much it paid for.
But I used to love it and come down and did that program. And Kathy, who was, again, a graduate from the program I was in, invited me down to do an internship. And then 2 weeks after she got here, or after I got here, she left to go work at the Maryland Zoo.
Okay.
And I thought, like, my mentor is now gone. What am I supposed to do for the next 6 months with this internship? And it ended up being a great opportunity for me to fill her shoes for 6 months. While I didn't get hired into that position, I was able to really begin to work and understand a lot about the education program at that point.
Were you working with cats? Were you an intern
No,
in the cat
so
show?
she at that point,
Okay.
she at that point had
Like, I had
switched
no idea.
from the cat show to be the program coordinator.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
she was in charge of all the education program, non-school education programs.
I see,
at the zoo.
okay.
And the cat show is one of those that kind of, it bleeds the line between like
Yeah.
animal care and education, right? They do
Yeah.
so much of both, so
Yeah.
it makes sense that someone would fit into education through that.
Yeah.
But how long ago was this? If you don't mind me asking, I'm really curious.
So-
like, what year was it when you
So
started?
that was, I spent the better part of the 80s in Oxford, Ohio. So my undergrad started in the early 80s and then back to graduate. Took 2 years off and worked as a carpenter for a couple of years. And then ended up back at Miami in the late 80s and came to do my internship here in 89 and I think got a full-time job in 1990. So
Nice.
that was
Wow,
32 years ago.
amazing.
And I, my personality type is I like change. I have enthusiasm for new things and new ideas. So throughout my career, I've been able to take on different roles initially within the education department, and then have been fortunate enough to get engaged when Thane became director. To get engaged, working with facilities, working with exhibit design, which I always loved. Working, with the horticulture team and others across the entire zoo. In fact, the path of my career has, in an interesting way, I got involved because of a love of wildlife, and the path of my career has made me realize the importance and the value of people here at the zoo. And we're fortunate to have an amazing group of people that make this place what it is today.
And I mean, you kind of moved away from the wildlife into people and more business. Did you just learn that as you went, or did you go back to school?
I'm always curious. So I did take a couple of courses in nonprofit management along the way, but most of it is just learned on the job, learned by working with others here, working with our board of directors, and a lot of leadership comes down to common sense, comes down to decision making in a way that we've been fortunate here, I think, to get the core recipe right, that idea of inspiring every visitor with wildlife every day. If we do that part right, then visitors are going to come and they're going to value what we're doing, and then we're able to take that value and invest it back into the zoo and the people that work here.
Yeah, then you can have people that work here that can help you with anything, and they have their own. We all have our own roles, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny. I ask because so many people not in the zoo world are always looking for well, not always, but you want to move up. And as a zookeeper, it's a weird thing because you go from, if you move up in your career and take on more responsibility or become like a leader or a boss,
a decision maker,
you work less with animals. And so oftentimes it's like, no, actually, I don't want to, in quotes, move up, in my career because then I wouldn't get to work with animals. So it's different sometimes. I'm glad you saw it. Like the value in people, you realize that you can be passionate about something else also because my parents or whoever will be like, well, do you want to become the boss one day? Do you want to be a curator one day? And like, I don't know. That would mean I don't get to hang out with Fiona every day. So probably not.
No, it's true. I think when I look at my career to date, it's been one where I've been able to manage projects and through those projects learn more about people, try and take on more responsibility. And I've been surrounded by amazing people. Like, I've spent most of my career working with Thane, and there is not a more optimistic person on the planet. And to be able to, see his energy and enthusiasm toward wildlife and toward sharing those stories, it's always been an opportunity for me to both learn from that, but to also fill in the niche of what he, we've worked together for 32 years. He's been here a little bit longer, but I've worked together for 32 years. And I recognize there are things that he did really well that I didn't need to focus on. Mm-hmm. And I tried to focus on some of those other aspects. We joke with each other about doing the work and talking about it and so on. But it is, at the end of the day, I think we've made a good pair.
Yeah, like you can fill in for each other's strengths and weaknesses, and make a good team. And that's awesome. And it's not likely that people work with the same person like side by side for that long in one career at one place. So it's very cool.
That's definitely something I appreciate about working at the zoo, though, is like, at heart, we're all animal nerds, but we're sitting down with the COO. Most people would be at their company talking to their COO, and you don't have anything to talk about or anything in common, but here...
Or they don't know your name.
We all love wildlife. We're all passionate about it. It's something that's easy to bond over, right?
And we're still... I hope... I don't know that I could ever work at a zoo that's so big that there are those kinds of barriers that exist, because we're still a small institution. We have 257 full-time employees. We should know each other. Mm-hmm. We should be able to get excited, when there's something exciting happening in your areas. I mean, what job do you get to go to every day? And for me, so my day starts probably not that different than what you guys do, is you check in with everybody just to make sure all the animals are secure for the night before. My morning is to read. I don't read all the daily reports from all the animals.
Oh my gosh, I would hope not. That would be long.
I get a summary of those, and I mean, who gets to start their job every morning reading about what's happened with the animal collection overnight? And it keeps you grounded. It keeps you remembering why we're here and what we're here to do.
That's actually interesting. So you start off that. What's the rest of your typical day look like for you?
A lot of meetings.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a lot of. So for me, a typical the typical pace of my work is tied more to strategy and trying to think about where we're going to be 6 months or a year from now versus what we're doing tomorrow or the next day. So I end up in a lot of discussions and meetings.
That makes sense.
In fact, too much so. Sometimes you need to stop. I, for many, many years, took a lot of pictures here at the zoo. It's something I love doing, and I don't have time to do it as much as I used to. But the thing I used to love about it, and I've come, Jenna, and shared some of the, when Fiona was younger, to be able to come over and take some pictures, and then to be able to share those pictures and that experience back with you as keepers and caretakers of those animals was always one of the most gratifying parts of my job.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's one of the things I miss a little bit and want to force myself to get back into.
Yeah, we feel that. We feel like there are more meetings than ever these days, and we sometimes have to force ourselves to make time to do sit with the meerkats or just go watch an animal, you know.
If you're not, when are you at your best?
When you're happy, right?
When you're happy, when you're inspired.
Yes.
And what inspires you? And I doubt there are many people in the world that say that meeting I just went to is the most inspiring thing that's happened to me all year. So you have to remember, and I tell anybody, reflect on, what you feel like, what it is that when you're at your best, and think about how to reinforce some of those values and some of those activities. Because when you're at your best, your teammates are gonna see it and feel it. You're gonna be more productive. Those things that you focus on, you're gonna succeed. Those things you focus on are gonna do better than the things you don't focus on. So be at your best. Figure out what that is, and try and manage your calendar. I tell people, and I'm not very good at it, but it's just a matter of make sure you have enough time for yourself.
Yeah.
To stay inspired.
All of those are really good
And that's
points.
something I wanted to ask you. Like, if you had a favorite part of your job and a least favorite part of your job, is your favorite part of your job those moments you get to go and take photos of animals around the zoo?
I think it is.
Yeah.
And today, I don't get out. I mean, we have so many great volunteer photographers that I actually can't compete with the quality
We do
of
have
the
some amazing photographers
that are here today. But yeah, no, my favorite part is going out, and stopping in at an area and not only getting to see the animals, and I love that part, but getting to hear what people are doing and how they're accomplishing it. So whether that's in an animal area or with our horticulture team, I like to approach every day curious and think about the things I don't know, and get excited around people who bring a different expertise to the table every day.
Speaking of excitement, something you get really excited about, as we heard at the start of the show, monarch butterflies. I really want to get into some of your experiences. My first question I wanted to ask you about it was like, what got you so interested in monarchs? But I think we just got the answer, right?
Yeah,
You're just sitting on a pier.
Accidentally saw migration.
So, and at that time, I think my daughter was 8 years old or so, 7 or 8 years old, and went over. So I'm sitting there that day, and these monarchs are flying by, and I literally was trying my damnedest to get a photo of one flying by, which I think I got one that wasn't blurry out of like 400 digital cameras had just come out, but later that afternoon I was able to go and, like I said, participate in one of these areas where there's a little bit of a fueling station for the monarchs. There were a couple of yards that had plants in it that were good nectar plants in order to help them fuel their migration. And you could literally walk up, capture. They taught us how to do it, take them over, and then the scientists would measure and weigh them, and then we'd release them. And I don't know if you're supposed to do this or not, but my 8-year-old daughter, we'd put it right on her nose, and then the butterfly would fly away. And
that would make for a good photo.
we had the best afternoon. So it was a great family experience. That turned into something that eventually led me down to be able to see the migration. But I think the thing that is so exciting about monarchs is they're so accessible. They're in everybody's backyard. They might not be the most numerous insect that you see in your backyard, but there's a really good chance that you can see one. There's a really good chance, if you plant the right plants, that you could see an egg laid and a caterpillar beginning to hatch.
Well, actually, a chrysalis from a monarch.
Oh, they look
insane.
like diamond green, little
Big gold, intricate.
My gosh,
It looks. There's no way that they could create that. They are the coolest things ever.
So it literally was the seeing this migration, and then having that experience. And we didn't go to a nature preserve. We were at Cape May Point, New Jersey. And we went into somebody's yard where they had planted the right plants to fuel the migration, and there we were doing science right in this person's front yard, and it was remarkable because if I can put my educator hat on for a minute, the thing that's really cool about monarchs is they are the only multi-generational migrant in the world. So
in the world,
think about that for a second. Think about that. So everybody can't see the photo behind Jenna. Here is a picture of Amboseli National Park. And we think of the great migrations that occur in the Serengeti and up into the Masai Mara, and the movement of the wildebeest across the Mara River, and the zebra that follow and the hoofstock that follow them. Unbelievable, a spectacle. The salmon running into the streams in the Pacific Northwest and up into Alaska. These incredible migrations. But here's a little monarch butterfly that flies 3,000 miles in the fall to overwinter in the eastern portion of the United States, to overwinter in a forest a couple hours to the west of Mexico City. So it flies all the way down to Mexico.
Do they all always go?
Yeah, so the eastern population migrates down to this monarch biosphere reserve. So there are different roosts within the reserve, and I've had the good fortune to go down and visit it, but they somehow migrate all the way down to the same spot. Now I'll go back to the multi-generational part. Because those individuals that overwinter, so they spend the winter there, and then they begin to become active in March, late February, March, and they begin the journey north. So here's this animal that now is 7-8 months old. They breed, lay some eggs in northern Mexico and Texas and southern United States. Those then caterpillars, that first generation, adult or morph into the adult and continue their migration north. So every year there are 4 generations of monarchs. So generation 1 is hatched in southern United States or northern Mexico, and they continue to move north, and the second generation, they only live for 6 weeks, and then the next generation. And it's that 4th generation, believe it or not. So the 4th generation of that year, which ends up being a little bit larger, those are the ones that make the actual trek down to Mexico. So not once does the same butterfly go to Mexico and come back north. So that butterfly that may be flying from somewhere in Canada, all the way down the flyways, in the case Cape May, New Jersey, all the way down the East Coast, around the Gulf of Mexico, down to Mexico, has never been there before.
I have so many questions. First of all, I had no idea. But so you're saying the 4th generation lives significantly longer, flies much, much further than the others.
Yep.
Is there something that happens in that 4th generation that allows them to be stronger or live longer, or is it just how it works?
My enthusiasm might fall short of the science here, so there might be some others that can answer that question a little bit better. But there is definitely something different that is occurring in that 4th generation. They do not have the urge to breed and invest the energy into reproduction at that point. They are driven to migrate.
What could drive them?
So that's occurring in, if you look at the calendar year, that's occurring in August and September when you begin to see that 4th generation. They then show up in Mexico on the Day of the Dead.
Always?
Wow. So literally right around that time,
wow,
they show up in, we went, the time I've been down to Mexico in 2019 to see this, we went to a little mining village called Angangeo, and it was there walking through the village that we heard the stories of, the belief that the monarch butterflies represent the spirits of those that had recently departed, returning to share in the Day of the Dead festivities. So, but they would come back to the same place. And then they
and how do they know how to get there and why do they go there?
They do believe that migration. They're able to migrate during the day, so they're certainly using the sun and the angles of the sun. There's also certainly a sensing of the Earth's magnetic waves, a part of it. I know there's some researchers right here at the University of Cincinnati that are working on some of the more detailed understanding of that, like the impact that the soil chemistry has on the forest where they go and how they may sense it. I mean, it's unbelievable stuff, but they go back to the same spot. And they have to nestle into the forest to get, they don't want to be on the edge where the cold could actually harm them. So they nestle in, reduce the winds, find the perfect humidity and temperature to be able to make it through the winter, and then they begin to get active again.
So they're not eating or drinking during
they'll
this
begin
time.
they'll begin to get more active. So I was down there in February, and they were all beginning to fly around, and certainly very active. And we saw a sky full of them at times. In fact, at one point we're on a hike, and these forests, some of them are very accessible. El Rosario is one where you can park in the parking lot and walk up through a gate, and within a quarter mile you're on a hillside full of monarchs.
Wow.
Others are a little bit more of a trek. And on one of these treks, we got up into the forest, and monarchs are just everywhere around us, and they're all feeding and fueling up. And as the sun was starting to come up, you could see the sun beginning to warm the trees, the canopy of the trees that the monarchs were roosting on. And initially, you see this incredible color show, this light show of just their wings pumping open and closed, and you see the orange and black, kind of waves of it through the forest canopy. And then all at once, without any warning, thousands of monarchs all flush into the air, and it was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, and one of the most amazing migrations in the whole world.
Definitely.
And it's right here in North America. And on top of that, not only is it right here in North America, but it's something that you can participate in.
Yeah.
You can be a part of helping this truly North American phenomenon. Like I said, it occurs nowhere else in the world. There are certainly insects that migrate, but nothing like this multi-generational migration
Over
that occurs
thousands of miles, right?
That
Yeah.
occurs with monarch butterflies, and as a homeowner here in Cincinnati, Ohio, you can participate. And you say, well, how can I participate in the monarch migration? Well, there are two things that they need. One is a host plant, in order to lay their egg and allow their caterpillar to grow. And the second is nectar to fuel their migration. So host plants, this is where it gets really interesting. They lay their eggs only on different species of milkweed. I think there's 27 or so different species of milkweed in North America. So they are searching out, milkweed is essential to their survival and success. So they lay an egg, and I can remember learning this in biology in the 1980s, but it's that caterpillar feeding on the milkweed that collects some of the chemicals from the milkweed that make the monarchs as adults taste really bad. So if you're a bird, for example, a blue jay, so I think the animal they did the study on, who tastes the monarch and gets sick, well, you learn what that pattern is, and you never go back and eat it again.
Yeah.
So as an adult, you're safe. As a caterpillar, there are lots of things that may prey on you as a caterpillar.
But they have those cool warning colors.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they only they require milkweed in order to survive. So one of the things that we can do as homeowners, and it's a horribly named plant to call it a weed.
Right.
But it's a beautiful flower. It doesn't flower for very long. It's this big ball-like dome made up of hundreds of little smaller flowers. And you can plant that right in your own yard. In fact, it's important if you're listening to this, find out what species of milkweed are common in your area, and make sure you plant those, so that those are the ones that those monarchs are going to need as they reproduce. So we can be a part of that migration right here. And how exciting would it be, to be able to walk out your door with your family and see a monarch caterpillar on a plant in your yard, and then see that chrysalis form, and then eventually have the adult butterfly, that adult monarch emerge from the chrysalis. To be able to have that experience in your backyard,
it's the coolest thing ever. So years ago, I don't know exactly how long ago it was, we didn't specifically plant milkweed, and I don't know where it was around our home, but we had woods on the side of our house. So I don't know if it was just randomly growing back there, but just one day we came out and there was a chrysalis hanging from our front porch, and I became obsessed with it and check it every day. And like I said, that was the first time I saw one in person. It's beautiful. It seriously looks like it was hand painted with gold by an artist. And yes, I think if you ever had the opportunity to come across one of those in your own yard, I promise you would fall in love with them.
I mean,
but I don't know half of this amazing stuff about them.
The first time I had one in my yard, and I saw the little tiny caterpillar, and tiny little caterpillar, and every day I went out to look for the caterpillar. And I'd look for the leaves that it was eating, and you have to peer under each leaf, and eventually it did get to a chrysalis stage and emerged as an adult, and I got to see it take its first flight.
No way, you caught that.
I sadly was watching it with my dog, who immediately ran over and tried to grab it out of the air, which I had to tackle him.
Oh my gosh!
Save the monarch.
Did you save the monarch?
I did save the monarch.
Good.
But that, I don't know of very few wildlife conservation stories that you can have such a direct and personal connection with, just by changing the plants that you put in your yard.
Right.
So here at the zoo, one of the ways that we do that is through a program called our Plants for Pollinator. I'm not a horticulturalist either, so I rely on our team here at the zoo to tell me there are 3 species of milkweed that we sell out at our native plant sales, which we do starting in April all the way through the fall. And you can buy native milkweed from the zoo and be able to put it right in your backyard, along with other pollinator plants, plants that are producing nectar for some of the spring bees or some of the late fall. One of the important things for monarchs is you also have to have nectar for them to fuel their migration.
Both
during
directions,
the fall.
right? Yeah.
So, being able to take the time to, and the nice thing about the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden is that we have an incredible team of horticulturalists that are able to help consult with you on what plants are going to work in your yard, what native species that you can put in the ground that are going to be great for not only for monarchs and other butterflies, but for many of the pollinators that we certainly rely on for much of the food that we eat and the flowering plants that we see. So that opportunity to bring nature and conservation right to your own backyard is not only unique, it's also critically important. That the yards that we have, when you think about a yard that is nothing but a green lawn with chemicals applied to it. How many times have you walked by that sign when you're out on a walk with your family or with your dog? You see that little sign in the yard that says, "No dogs, kids don't touch the grass.
Right.
It's poisonous." That's horrible.
Right.
I mean, it's absolutely horrible. Let's instead try and figure out ways to manage our gardens without pesticides and add plants that the native plants are always a great start, but we also do science here at the zoo to learn which of the annuals that we plant here in our garden are the most beneficial to pollinators. And we can share that
cool.
with you.
Yeah.
And we can share that and say, hey, here are the ones that we've found that grow in this area that are really great. And you can put them in your yard. And it doesn't mean you have to turn your entire yard into a pollinator garden.
Yeah.
Just mix some of those native plants in there. Mix the milkweed in there and then wait and see what comes, see what approaches.
I feel like I've read once or something that if you just have one pot of flowering plants, I mean, that can bring a whole host of different pollinators to your yard.
Yeah,
and-
even if you're in an apartment, you can get a big pot and create a little pollinator garden, even in your apartment.
Right, it doesn't take much, just some flowers.
These are all just micro ecosystems.
Yeah.
There's a whole ecosystem in every flower pot
Yep.
for all these insects.
And it's again, it doesn't take much, but that simple act, which you can then get the zoo support from. So not only we'll help you figure out what plants work in your garden, but then you can certify your garden.
Yeah.
And you can become part of a national network of certified gardens. We've certified over a couple thousand gardens that are now part of a conservation story that is succeeding.
Yes.
And what more could there be?
Yeah.
I have a few questions regarding the monarchs. One, do you know the reason, I don't know if anyone knows the reason, but why migrate at all? Why not stay in Mexico, or why not stay in the southern United States? Why go north when there's probably plants and flowers at all times and heat further south?
I'm gonna have to plead the fifth on that.
That's fine.
I don't know. I can tell you with lots of birds, you do go in search of, when you see a lot of the birds that are migrating north, a lot of our songbirds that are here during the summer come to our forests because of the abundance of food, the abundance of insects. So what started that migration? I'm not really sure. There is a western population of monarchs as well. So whether that was some animals that made it over the Rockies and into California, but they don't migrate all the way into Mexico. They're actually much more endangered, much smaller population than the eastern monarch. But they also migrate. So, and there are other butterflies that migrate.
Right.
Again, my guess is related to resources.
So maybe there just
searching
wouldn't be
out
enough resources if they
Yeah.
all stayed in one place or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just because in the warmer areas there are going to be more resources. So it's like why make that huge journey? And it's incredible that they know to go south and how to get there. But you mentioned that the western monarchs are endangered, and that was one of my other questions. They're considered endangered or critically endangered, or
Yeah,
do you
their
know?
population really was impacted. Their population dropped down into the thousands of animals.
Is this
very
specifically
recently.
western or
Yeah,
both?
western.
Okay.
I think the whole monarch population was listed as on the red list, which again, there are very few insects on that list, and here is this opportunity for us to highlight an incredible animal that whose feat, migration is without parallel in the animal world, and bring attention to the small animals. I think E.O. Wilson said it best. They're the little creatures, the insects that rule the world. We couldn't live without them, and their value cannot be overstated. So to be able to identify, hey, there are issues, there are things that you can do. There are threatened and endangered insects in the world that we need to pay attention to, as well as some of the larger vertebrates that we tend to highlight here at the zoo. But insects are critically important to those ecosystems.
And that western population, correct me if I'm wrong, they were affected by the wildfires a lot, right? Yeah.
Wildfires, climate change, finding the places to roost and make it through their winters is part of that as well.
Habitat loss, I assume, is a big part of it.
Pesticides, pesticides are certainly a big issue with any insect population, and monarchs included in that. So the use of pesticides in broad forms across the U.S. It's not good.
It's not good for us.
It's not good for us either, particularly for your lawn.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah.
So the tagging of the monarchs. So I remember I found one just a few years ago, and I know there was is it monarchs.org, or do you know the site? If you find one and you can try and get a picture, and there's a little teeny tiny number on that sticker that's on their wing. Do you know much about that?
Yeah.
Or how people can participate?
Yep. So so that's again the beauty of this. Not only can you participate by planting plants in your own yard and encouraging monarchs and other pollinators into your yard, you can watch the migration. There's some folks at a program, journeynorth.org, where you can begin to look at the track of the monarchs as they move north and south every year. The Monarch Joint Venture is another, I think it's monarchjointventure.org, is another really great resource that combines a lot of the individuals that are working on monarch conservation. And provides access to all their resources. But Journey North, I think, is the team that you're thinking about that really manages a lot of that migration. Monarch Watch, I think, is a third one.
That sounds familiar.
That does a lot of the monarch tagging.
Okay, so basically, if you find that, then you can submit it to
Correct.
one of these websites. So the researchers, you're helping them, and they can know where these monarchs are being found and where they're traveling to and where there might be food.
They travel.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's
And the tagging process fascinates me. Do you know a whole lot about that? Like I never understood how you're able to tag a butterfly without damaging it or hurting it. Like it makes no sense to me. They're so delicate. They're so small
it's
animals.
a tiny little sticker, and they say it balances. That doesn't impact their overall migration. The weight of it is insignificant, and they certainly found. The hard part is recovering. Monarchs is not an easy thing. It's like finding a needle in a haystack sometimes. But they do find the tagged animals down in Mexico or along the journey south. So it is one that you should work with individuals who know how to do it and are trained to do it. Like even the story I mentioned of collecting, all I did was catch the butterfly, and then I'd hand it over to the person who gently handled it and able to measure it, sex it, and then add the tag. So smarter engineers than me.
Yes. Something else I wanted to ask you about regarding monarchs is our monarch festival here at the zoo.
Yeah.
Will you talk a little bit about like the origins around it and what inspired it?
Yeah. So again, the accessibility of monarchs to people is what really inspired it. The opportunity for us to celebrate that migration. So monarchs are not only migrating in August and September, they're also at their highest numbers. So their generations have grown in size as they move from that first generation, second, third, fourth. So they're at the largest number. So you see the most monarchs typically in that August and September time of the year. So it's again, we're here at the zoo. We've got Fiona, we've got animals from around the world, but because of the plants we plant in our garden, we're able to attract monarchs here, and we're able to celebrate that migration. Celebrate what it's like to move 3,000 miles to cross rivers and mountains and prairies to end up down in Mexico. We're able to celebrate the culture too of the area where the Monarch Biosphere Reserve is, again just a little few hours west of Mexico City, and it gives us an opportunity to explore that connection that people have with wildlife and celebrate it. And highlight some of the folks that have partnered with us along the way, helping our pollinator program succeed.
Yeah, the Monarch Festival is always a fun one to me. I mean, it takes place, it's a bit of a different Saturday depending on the year. It's always sometime in that August, September, October range, but it's always fun seeing like the videos and photos of kids. They make wings for the kids, and the kids will march around the gift shop area and Vine Street Village area with their butterfly wings. It's always fun.
So we had the idea to work with a local vendor and create a 8-foot monarch that you put on a big harness, and you flap the wings with your arms out.
I think I've heard of you wearing this monarch costume.
I did wear on the first year we had it. I said, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to lead the monarch parade, And I will admit, by the end of the parade, my shoulders and forearms were about to collapse. But it's one that we have a lot of fun with. Our zoo teens here at the zoo take a big role with it. So they bring their energy. Have you ever been in one of those races where they throw color dye at you?
Oh,
so
yeah.
we do a little bit of that with the black and orange colors here. And our zoo teen program celebrates the monarchs, not only helping teach kids about them, but bringing that energy to the main entry and to kind of understanding what these animals are going through. And then our insect team is out often doing some demonstrations and talking with visitors as they're here at the zoo.
Very cool. Yeah. So people can look for that next fall here at the zoo to join the Monarch Festival here.
The parade, the Monarch Parade, the Monarch Festival. It's a fun one for sure.
Man, so I always knew they were amazing and have thought monarchs were beautiful and amazing to see in my yard, but I had no idea, and I knew they migrated, but I had no idea there were like 4 generations. Some live longer than others. Is there anything else, like really cool facts we've missed or you think we should highlight?
You know, it is, for me, I think it is that migration itself that is the miracle that, you know, I kind of want to know what drives them to migrate, but I almost don't want to, you know?
The mystery's more exciting.
The mystery is so exciting, but science continues to drive us to learn more, and the fact that migration and these animals can inspire us to make changes in our own behavior, in our own and actions that we can take in our own yards, also provides hope.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
How often are you talking with folks, and you know, we're talking about cheetah conservation or lion conservation or things that are so far away from what we can do on a daily basis. Well, this is an animal that you can not only celebrate, but you can take action to help it succeed and survive by planting milkweed and other pollinator plants in your own garden. So you can.
That's a good point.
You can take not only an active role, a critical role,
yes,
in helping these animals survive.
Make a significant difference for animals that are in your backyard, and obviously giving and donating to all sorts of things is fantastic. But yeah, giving $50 to lion conservation is going to do a lot, and it's very worthy cause, but you could literally just plant something in your backyard and save like a monarch's life. I think about this migration, and it's like I couldn't swim across the Ohio River, right? But these monarchs fly across 3,000 miles, but like, so they're not eating constantly. You would think it would take so much energy, and like, so they cross this big river and then.
Yeah, they're not eating constantly, but they are refueling. So that's part of the story as well. Finding that sugary nectar.
It's just amazing they can get past one point
in order
and then try to
refuel,
find more.
To rest at night. They only migrate during the day, so they'll rest at night, and then continue their way on south. Hopefully, catching the right fronts the winds are blowing in the right direction.
Yeah.
So certainly a big part of that and a big help. But they're amazing.
Have you ever seen one at night? I've never found a butterfly resting at night.
Yeah, I literally, when I've seen both here in Cape May, New Jersey, as well as down in Mexico. When you come across these roosts, they're just their wings are closed. They're just up against the
But like,
tree
what about
or
an
on a
branch
branch.
here in Cincinnati? Like, if it just was on its way and it's by itself, it's not with a bunch. Where are they sleeping? Or like, have you ever?
So they you know, often they'll sleep in and among the branches of evergreen trees a lot of times. But around here, like, I've never seen one around here.
Yeah, that's
so
what I was just wondering.
I don't know if here it would be the same as what you'd see down in Mexico, but. They are just finding that place to roost each night, and then let the sun warm them up the next day and get on their way. And there are lots of studies. I'm a monarch enthusiast. I'm not a monarch scientist. So folks at Journey North, folks at the Monarch Joint Venture provide great access to resources and some of the most current information that's going on. I'll also say the trip I did to Mexico to visit the monarch roosts is a zoo trip. So we led the first time we had done it back in 2019. We had one set to go in 2020, right when COVID hit. But we were able to send that down earlier this year. We'll take a year off next year, and then we'll offer it again. So if you're interested in seeing this, we work with a great team of folks, and I can tell you that the experience itself is remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, just some of the, right before we started recording, you were showing us some of the photos.
One of my favorite pictures, and I think we can describe this to your listeners. If you can imagine a sky full of monarch butterflies that looks like leaves falling from a tree here in our fall, but it's actually thousands, tens of thousands of monarchs that are filling the air as they begin to move around.
This photo is seriously incredible. It does look like, from afar, if you don't see the details of the butterflies, it looks like a fall day with a windy, like,
blowing up all the leaves. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
it looks
incredible.
like something from a movie or a TV show. It doesn't look like there's too many butterflies to count in the photo. It's incredible. And you described earlier the sound. You can actually hear butterflies.
This it only happened to us a couple of times, but once it must have been thousands, if not tens of thousands, of butterflies that flushed out of their night roost all at once, and you heard the wings, the combined wing flap. And the amazing part, there were about 4 or 5 of us standing there as we were watching this, and you could, as we replayed the video, you could just hear everybody sigh and go, wow. And it was just this incredible moment where you literally can hear the sound of a monarch flying.
that is
Amazing.
Or at
Yes,
least thousands
unbelievable.
of them at once.
I am definitely going to try and make this happen at some point in my life. Well, Mark, do you have trivia for us today?
If you're up for it,
Yeah.
I do have some trivia questions
boy.
for you guys. We're obviously talking about monarch butterflies today. Trivia's butterfly related.
Oh gosh.
So, best of luck. I know for me personally,
We are
Trouble.
in trouble here.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure you'll do great.
Can we call a friend? I know some entomologists,
we have no
you know.
lifelines here. No lifelines here. All right, question 1. About how many butterfly species are there in the world?
Oh my gosh.
So, every question has a story, but so the famous biologist J.B. Haldane once said, he was a theologian too, I think he said, when God created life on earth, he had a propensity for beetles. Is there more beetles in the insect world than any other type of insect? So that's my trivia moment there. I don't know how many butterflies there
Yeah,
are.
are there more species of beetles than there are like insects combined or
Correct.
something
Yeah,
like that? Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, butterflies.
I'll tell you this, there's a lot of butterflies out there too.
What do we think? Can we do an over-under here?
All right, I'll give your over-under. Over-under at 30,000.
What?
I'd say over.
Over-under's at 30,000.
I was going to guess like 300, so my guess would have been under.
It is under. It is under. There's about, give or take, there's about 17,500.
Wow.
butterflies.
Different species.
Different species of butterfly. Just in the United States, there's about 750.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we should say, if you're here at the zoo during the summer, last year we opened up our butterfly aviary in our insect world to tropical butterflies. So you can see a host of different species, not 17,000, if you come and visit the insect world during our summer season.
Which is very cool. to
It's
see.
beautiful to see, especially with all the natural light, the skylights let all the sunlight in. It's really pretty to see. All right, we've got a lot of butterflies out there. That's the first thing we've established. Question 2, which I think is something that trips a lot of listeners up. How many wings do butterflies have?
4.
I think it's just 2.
It is 4.
Four.
It is 4. They
I guess
have
all insects have 4,
a
right?
pair of 4 wings and a
Yeah.
pair of hind wings.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they do have 4 wings that kind of can operate independently if they need
I've
to.
just lost all my credibility.
Hey, we did say this man is an enthusiast. He's passionate and he loves his butterflies. But none of us can be experts of everything, right?
No.
My gosh, that's.
No.
I mean, Jenna and I, how many times have we gotten trivia questions wrong
Oh
on
my
the
gosh,
show?
so many. And sometimes I say
I'm 2 for 2 so
hippo
far.
facts, and I'm like, I don't know if that's true. I think I read that once. You know,
Do you ever make up an answer?
I usually
Like-
try and say I don't know, but sometimes I'll say something like, "Did I just make that up?"
Like there's a general, like, how long's gestation for different animals, different mammals? And I
you
like
just make it up.
Well, no, I have like a size category. Elephants at the one end, mice at the other, and I just kind of
Hippos
try
might
and
trip
figure
you
out.
up on that.
I
They're
know,
shorter.
I know. There's some like hippos or sloths that are a little bit longer.
So long.
Yes. So it
It's hard to know everything.
it's hard to know
that's for
everything.
sure.
That's the one thing we can appreciate about working in the zoo field, though, is it's not just hard, it's impossible
Yeah.
to know
Right.
everything. There's always something to learn, though,
Yes.
so it makes it fun. But question 3, I think we've got one
we
here.
can get.
It's a softball. This one's a softball. How many miles is the monarch migration?
I only know this because Dave taught me just now.
It can be up to 3,000 miles.
Yeah,
So-
3,000 miles. 2,500 to 3,000
Yeah.
miles,
Yeah.
depending on exactly where they're coming from and where they're going. But the stat about that fascinated me that I saw is monarch butterflies can fly up to 100 miles in a single day,
Wow,
which is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Like,
they're so small
Yeah.
to fly that. Yeah.
Imagine walking, running,
Yeah.
cycling, any of those
any
100
of those,
miles.
Yeah.
Gosh, a crazy day
Yeah.
for us is usually like 8,
Yeah.
maybe 9 miles is my max. I think I've walked
Yeah.
at work, and you're exhausted.
Yeah.
Your feet hurt by the
Yeah.
end. 10 times that. Wow.
Butterflies are incredible. All right, last question we have here for you. What is the largest species of butterfly? Bonus points if you can tell me how large it is.
Wow. So
In terms of wingspan.
some of the, I don't know, but some of the blue morpho butterflies are quite large, 6 inches across.
I always, like, from what I've seen in person, I always thought monarchs were some of the
Yeah.
biggest. Are they?
No, there's some that are bigger.
Okay.
Like you'll see
The blue morph.
blue morpho. They're the only ones I'm familiar with.
What about
but
like a swallowtail?
So
there's got to be a giant something or other there.
Yeah, so there's a subcategory of butterflies called birdwings. And
Yes.
it's particularly the Queen Alexandra's birdwing is the largest known species.
Never heard of it.
Can get up to 12 inches across.
Wow, that would be
wingspan.
gorgeous.
Wow.
Where
Can't
are
even
they
imagine.
from? Did you say that?
You know, I don't know the answer to that, Jenna,
Okay.
but we can find out. We can find out. While we're finding out, though,
Okay.
do we have any other questions
you
for Dave?
Google it and I'll ask Dave. Dave, what can I do? You've mentioned so many things,
Yeah.
and maybe it's obvious to everybody, but if you were going to give one specific
So
thing.
let's be really direct, and the most important thing you can do for monarch butterflies is plant milkweed. Then the question is, where do I get milkweed? Well, the zoo every year does a native plant sale out at our Boyer farm. It's advertised on our website. That's one spot you can get it and talk to your experts or our experts while you're out there.
And Boyer Farm is amazing. Take that opportunity to visit if you can.
And most importantly, stay engaged by registering your garden. So if you can help become part of the solution, plant plants for pollinators, register your garden with us here at the zoo. You can get a sign that you can put in your garden, and then help us track the change that we're making in this world to help support monarchs and other pollinators.
Awesome. I mean, I really suggest if you can plant milkweed. It is hard to find sometimes, and if you can't
is.
make it out to Boyer, I think you can probably order it online or find some seeds at your local nurseries. I've had a harder time finding plants that have already grown, like seed,
Yeah.
or I don't know what you call them, seedlings, or
Yeah.
that you can plant at a nursery. But go to Boyer if you have the chance, because
And
it'll be worth it.
Yep, and most importantly, if you're listening to this, look for the species that are common in your area. That's important that you plant the milkweed that's native to your. It's not only the milkweed that's going to grow the best,
Right.
in your neck of the woods. There's some tropical milkweeds that have become popular, they can disrupt the monarch's migration.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So it's something. There's a lot of science that's being put together on that right now, but they may encourage them in some cases to lay another generation of eggs, or to maybe even not migrate.
Stick around too long.
Stick around too long. So make sure that you're looking up and planting the milkweeds that are common in your area.
Okay,
Interesting. And you can also plant some pollinators as well, right? You mentioned the butterflies are going to need to refuel on these journeys. They're going to need plenty of food to get there, plenty of nectar.
And again, the pollinator plants you can buy, you can keep color in your garden all summer and fall. But there are flowers that are going to be your early spring blooming, and then you want to get into the asters and some of the other things that are going to be those fall bloomers that help fuel the migration south.
And we do have a site on the zoo's, or a page on the zoo's website that has like a lot of information about plant for pollinators and a list of plants to plant and all of that. So, did you find out this answer?
I'll say one footnote before we go. Queen Alexandra's birdwing only found in Papua New Guinea.
Oh, that makes sense.
New Guinea.
Of course.
Gorgeous
Wow,
butterfly,
he
though.
has a picture of it.
Gorgeous butterfly.
Holy cow, that looks fake. It's like gorgeous. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Dave. I apologize for all the coughing, especially to Mark and Dave and everyone listening, but we really appreciate it, and go plant some milkweed.
Yes, thank you so much. We know you're a busy man. Thanks for taking the time to meet with us.
This was fun.
And thank you all you listeners for joining us for another episode of Cincinnati Zoo Tales. Until next time.